gigantic. Everything I need.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for Gründerszene hosting such an amazing event. I really enjoyed it here. Been here 2 years ago, and this place is really something we can thrive. The next few minutes, I would like to talk about Fineway. Thanks for Josephine for moderating that. That's really what we want to do is free instant trip planning, enabling everyone to never waste time or money on trip planning ever again in their life. How do we start? Hey, Fineway, let's plan a trip to somewhere magical. That easy it should be in the future to plan your next trip. Or to have it more founder-like, formulated, how to disrupt a multi-billion market, of course, with AI and other fancy tech stuff. There is no real, as we call it, real founder or real startup without any AI component in it. In this case, it's really required, otherwise we wouldn't get it going. But let's start with the market. I said it's a multi-billion market. We all know travel is big. But in fact, travel is crazy big. Just talking about the travel expenses, we're talking in 2017 about $1.6 trillion. And that's just for the travel spending. It's not for the local value add when you have your croissant in Paris or something like that. It's just for the travel spendings. And that's a market growing year over year over year. It's the second fastest growing market in the world. And that's just the bookings, yeah. And it's also just the beginning of this market. We're talking about such a trillion market. And even though if you only take the leisure travel, for example, it's still only the only online booking market. We're still talking about 800 billion euro. And if you only take the smallest niche you can think of, something, for example, individual trip booking, just in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, we still talk about more than 100 billion euros. So whatever niche you take out of this market, it's just huge. And again, it's just a start because a lot of this market is still non-digital. A lot of this market is just in the beginning. It's just rising. Just think of China. China is just in this moment actually starting to think about how to do trips, not only group trips, but really go individual. And actually, a mass of these people are just starting to think how do vacations differently than they have, or even to start have their first vacation in their lifetime. So this market is already one of the most massive. Nevertheless, because it's so big, this market is crazily crowded. And that's actually the reason, because there is so much in this market. We just got a super nice speech for Get Your Guide. That's one of these big players, but there are even far large players, like the biggest one is Expedia, the largest travel company on earth, chased by Booking.com, or Booking Holding, as they call themselves now. So, and there are thousands more. But, and that's the point, the race is just on. Travel actually really heats up in the last few years, especially in the last 2 years. There are some races which are almost over before they began, and that's, for example, with Get Your Guide and others, the whole activities part. It's extremely interesting, but that's something that the race is almost over. Nevertheless, there is another frontier, and that's the fully individualized multi-day trips. Multi-day trips, that's the most complex part of trips, and because you have to combine several stops, you have to do the routing, you have to get in the programs, that's how you call it, round trips, whatever we like to call it. But this, having this multi-day trips and then to individualize it at least some level, that's the highest complexity you can think of. And that's why it took us so long to actually get there. You need a lot of preparation in the market to actually enable that. But that's the ultimate goal you want to get. Everybody should be able to get immediately to an individualized trip. That's the whole trend of personalization, and of course, multi-day trips. But isn't that already in place? Unfortunately not. So you have to book a trip or like a hotel or a flight is super, super easy today. I can do that on my smartphone via Booking.com, Kayak, or whatever you call it, within a few minutes. Going to Barcelona, I've been there, I don't know, 20 times, that's no problem. But if you go with the multi-day trips, it becomes a real pain, and your browser and your laptop or whatever looks just within a few minutes like that. You have dozens of browser windows and tabs open, and you get lost, and you spend a lot of time actually into that. Because I think it's pretty hard to see, but nevertheless, it gets pretty confusing. You start somewhere, you start maybe via Instagram, you get some inspiration, you get some ideas from your friends, or it's just your girlfriend or boyfriend telling, hey, we need to plan your next vacation, otherwise it's getting really, really expensive. And then you start this process, and you iterate, and you restart again, and all of that really becomes some kind of effort and work. And even for a normal trip, you have about 90 different websites, including Google Maps and others, in your trip planning process alone. Not the traveling, only the trip process. And that accumulates actually to up to two or three different websites. And that's why it gets so difficult there. How to solve that? There are two approaches actually when you have a very complex problem. The first one is you get a lot of very trained people on that. Let's call it sales expert. That's something we have done in the past. But of course, you can digitize that, you have it more organized. The problem is you need many trained sales experts if you want to scale that, if you want to get into other markets, if you want to operate it at a certain level. The second option is you go algorithmic about that, because actually that's a trade-off problem, and you need an algorithm to actually get the value out of that, all the combinations, and to make, based on psychographic profiling, the best possible proposal for that. That's what we invented, this free instant trip planning, and that's actually our message. You get it in 3 minutes, your first trip proposal, and not in 3 weeks when you book it on your own, or if you go to a tour operator or a digital solution for that. How does it look like? Exactly like that. 3 minutes, you get a digital inquiry, digital process, a few 10 questions, super relevant for you, and then instantly you get a trip offer with a price you can book, and everything off to go. And of course, you can adjust it on yourself on a high level, or you can go with a digital travel sales agent on that. Last but not least, how do we do that? You need to generate a self-generating dialogue, because actually the real magic is not in the proposal alone, it's in the questions I ask you to understand what kind of type you are, what kind of profile you are, what is important to you, what is less important to you, where you are able to make your trade-offs. It's like in dating or in finance or real estate. And this kind of questions, and especially with the answers together, what kind of answers, that's how you generate the best possible expert conversation there is. For that, you need 3 building blocks at least. You need, of course, a progressive profile. It means everything you do in the website, on what kind of device you have, and so on and so on. You need to get into a user profile on the fly to generate like a psychographic profiling out of that. Otherwise, if you just ask product features, you end up in all of this booking-like and in different industries, you have the same problem in a very, very, very complex search and compare and filter logic, and that's not possible. So that's why you need to create a profile and understand the user there. Based on that, you need a non-rule-based entropy detection. It means if they have to define rules, users that like the affinity pool, don't offer them a rental car of that size, you get crazy, and the whole system is broken from the start because it gets just too complex, and you can't put all the complex travel for the whole world into a rule set. That's not possible. That's why I want a non-rule-based engine there. And last but not least, you need to build the trip in real time. It's not like you can just take out of the shelf a ready-made product like this trip for South Africa 10 days, or the other one. That's not working. There are so many variables in that, like you have a specific trip start date, you want to have, spending 2 more days in Cape Town because you're visiting some friends, whatever you have there on specifics, that's why you need to build on the fly the trip in all components, the whole bill of materials, actually on the fly. Last but not least, how is that a business, or how can you make out of business, and why we're doing that way? You need a data flywheel. So you see, I'm from Amazon originally. We also talk about flywheels there. Here we talk about data flywheels. That's why we offer this as a free service. More people actually using the service. They're creating their trips. They're planning their trips. And then, of course, the algorithms get better. We get a lot of feedback data. That's something which is really interesting. Travel is really about feedback data. That's used as training data. And so the results getting better. We're getting better prices there. And so we can offer a better result than for the next user. So for your own, but for the whole population as well. Yeah, there we are now. We're doing already 7-digit monthly revenues. We have launched a product after almost 3 years of research and development half year ago, or starting of this year. We are now in a ramp up of this service, so please try it out. Send me feedback, we're looking for that. We're already a team of about 30 plus machine learning engineers, data scientists, and of course normal engineers, plus about another 40 on product and other parts, so a team of 70. In Munich, yeah, happy to talk about you, getting your feedback as really start of an amazing and really, I hope, life-changing journey there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this interesting lecture. It's been pretty interesting to see how Fineway gained success and how it all developed.
Of course.
So I'm wondering if you are having any questions. Anyone? Well, I got some.
Still hot for questions.
What kind of questions? Yeah. Actually, tell us about your last trip. Where did you go, and did you plan it with Fineway?
Yeah. Unfortunately not. So my last trip was actually to Sweden, to Lapland.
Nice.
Unfortunately, that's not on our roadmap today, but the plan is actually to have it at least in the next 12 months, and then it will be possible. But that's exactly the trip, actually. I had to go with an existing tour operator, so have it already pre-packaged, and I would have done it a bit different, maybe on my own, but that's exactly the use case we need to cover and we want to cover.
Oh, nice. So thank you so much, Markus.
Welcome.
Enjoy your day, and thank you so much for
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thanks.